Morning, guys. Happy New Year. First of all, this is Francis here for the Reset Sniper, giving you some fresh tales from the crypt. Yes, indeed. So, reading a fascinating book and wanting to get a proper handle on how the Great Reset will go down. Long gone are the days where I had to convince people that one was even due. But now, more often, the question is, how did things go down? I've got a story and a tale for you, and I'd like you to draw your own conclusions from it. But first, I need to paint the picture and give you a little bit of an idea how the machinations of the grand dark state actually operates. So, number one, if you build a big successful business, you eventually start to get noticed. And the problem happens when you get noticed. You start to need to make political contributions. You have to help fund the Punch and Judy show of red versus blue. Let's say you're a successful businessman and you've built a great business. It starts to get bigger. You're in the States. You start to have branches in every state. Maybe it's a pizza chain, or maybe it's a financial asset management business, for example. You originally were a little mom and pop stockbroker, and now you're in every state and you've got people managing money. Your success begets notice. And the thing that happens is the laws are written that every single one of you are breaking a law. They're also incomprehensible, vast, contradictory, and can apply differently in different states, across different places, that keeping your nose clean as someone running a business in, say, the United States, across multiple states and federal law is almost impossible. And in fact, as the great Al Capone strategy that was implemented, get him on the tax, you are always culpable of a tax fraud. This is the tax extractor scheme. You are always potentially guilty of something that wasn't paid. So if you don't start contributing, and you'll notice the big license too big to fails, and we'll get back to those in a minute, support both teams. In other words, essentially they fund the fake Punch and Judy show so that people can be selected, not elected, selected to run a little pantomime that gives the people the choice to make a real decision about how their future will be dictated as part of the fake democracy of a centrally run global world, and particularly if we say, let's just talk about the States, a global mega power. So if your store gets big and you aren't making political donations, and a rival is, what tends to happen is the dark state comes and breaks a few windows in your plant area. And that is, you didn't pay this tax, you haven't done that, you haven't secured this license, etc., etc. It's like harassment, because this is a mafia cartel, have no illusion, and only difference is they have a law that gives them officialness, authenticity, and you start to get harassed. Suddenly you find the value of paying and supporting a number of people's campaigns in the red team versus the blue team fake charade a lot less expensive than having to build out an entire huge, mega staffed up officialdom, licensing, compliance, tax efficiency department of admin bureaucrats that have to stay on top of the ever fluctuating and scything and rigmaroling. You're still going to need some of that, but if you don't play the back me game, you quickly run into trouble. If you get really big, you'll find antitrust lawsuits and everything. Things that, for example, Google and Facebook just simply don't seem to find at all on a far smaller scale. So what then happens is the government after 2008, your control structure, the dark state behind your government, because it's not the government, it's not the people that get rotated. These are lower middle management TV show, teleprompter readers. The real dark state organizations what do? Well, they decided after 2008 to create a category called G, yes, G hash SIFI. G SIFI. I quite like the idea of it being called SIFI because that's pretty much my sentiment towards them. Anyway, G stands for global, the SI stands for significant, and then F for financial institution. So essentially, in code, for many of you, this is known in the slang and to the everyday man as the too big to fail label. So all of this happened. Now, I'm going to talk to you about BlackRock. BlackRock became an absolutely vast asset management. They are really, really big, but they're an asset management company. They have a huge amount of assets under management. They're not a bank. They don't take deposits. They can't fail on not providing. They can't have a bank run. Essentially, they don't own the money that is assets under asset management. That's their clients' money. They just control how it gets allocated, buy and sell on behalf of institutional and investable clients. To give you an idea of BlackRock, they actually look after one of the Chinese state investment schemes and also California government workers' personal pensions. So one of the biggest states, almost an economy in its own right. They manage all that. So everybody who's an employee in the Californian state, in a government entity, their pensions are being managed by one asset manager. This is just two institutional clients, never mind the high net worths and other big corporates, etc., whose money they will manage. Now, the control structure listed most of the big banks as G-SIFIs, globally significant financial institutions, which essentially means they have control over these institutions. In other words, they have a mandate that says they will not allow these to fail. The mandate that goes with that is that they then have a say and write in terms of their terms how those businesses may or may not behave. In other words, they are extremely powerful. Now, who did this? Is this just a Washington thing? No. In this BlackRock story, they started paying their red versus blue unofficial mafia collection fee extraction taxes to keep the guys from breaking their window panes and harming them relative to other competitions like all the others that's in the same category have to pay for the Punch and Judy show. But this is a new enemy. Instead of it being Washington and Obama or Trump, etc., this is the IMF and the G20. So this now transcends, and this is your superstructure, think the pyramid, that is now global of nature and looks at all banks. So in the same way, it'll look at Citigroup, it'll also look at Barclays. One's an English bank, one is a American bank. It'll also look at, for example, HSBC, which is supposedly based now out of, I think, is it still London or Hong Kong? I can't even keep up. But what you understand by this is global, no longer national state. Now, they haven't paid their fees or their extraction fees at a global level, our BlackRock. Now, so what then comes along is they, aka the dark state, IMF, World Economic Forum, G20, all the many little parasitical fleas, pseudo-elites, I call them control structure, I don't encourage them by ever calling them elites, all extract and decide to wish to categorize this asset manager now as well as a globally significant financial institution, too big to fail. Now, here's a big difference between an asset manager. There is no bank run on an asset manager. They only have a remit. They have a document. It's like I hand you a document and you give me $10 million of yours. It's held in a bank. I don't have access to that account. I just have the ability to buy certain stocks, shares on your behalf, which are held in escrow and trust. In other words, I don't fail. You just lose money. If I make bad decisions. And if I make good ones, you make some money and I scoop a little bit of fees. However, I control, if I'm BlackRock, an immense amount of money. Now, when you're preparing and you know there is a reset coming, as a dark state, you find somebody who controls an immense amount of money as something that you would like to control and have a little bit of power over. Nothing to do with banking, nothing to do with protecting the people, nothing to do protecting their people's deposits, nothing to do with protecting their banking system, nothing to do with legitimate interests of the man in the street. Everything to do with controlling somebody who controls a lot of money. Now, they have continued to force their way in on the likes of BlackRock, and there will be others they will be acting on too. And what is the key point? What is the key point? In the negotiations and the discussions and the continual assertions that they are not a globally significant, while vast and big and powerful, they do not represent any risk to consumers. Only if markets fall, the wealthy people and institutions that have invested with them will experience market losses, just like any other event. You get the upside and you get the downside, and sometimes those downsides come a little quicker and a little faster than most people would like. But that's the price of the ticket and the game for generally grinding up and making positive inflationary to inflation index gains if they are performing. So where do we go with this? Well, the key point, and this is the crux, so hear me out and listen to this. The dark state, the G20, the IMF, the World Economic Forum, all these people will actually assert, I've been made available to this information, will actually assert the power to tell and not allow a massive asset manager such as BlackRock to sell. In other words, come the Great Reset, they will refuse the power of actually asset managing from the biggest asset manager in the world. In other words, they don't want them even to secure a minimum return for people by selling the assets if they feel uneasy. If they deem it is a significant moment and there is ructions in the market, they will not allow, at the most critical time when an asset manager clearly shows its value by being early and securing its clients' assets, they will block, by making it a globally significant financial service, they will have power and control. This is how far it goes. On an asset manager, aka not a bank, somebody who just has discretional management over money, not a bank, to prevent them from doing their job entirely at the most key moment that you need them to do it. In other words, the whole concept of market is gone. A price discovery mechanism where there are both buyers and sellers of free will to participate in a price discovery mechanism based on the principles of supply and demand and emotions at the time, sentiment, etc., outlook, is removed entirely. It is a long-only game, and when you have to hit the exit in a hurry because it's been a pump and dump environment, or they've dropped monetary policy so low that we've just gone up and up in asset values, and they know they are storing up the mother of crashes, they will make it impossible for those that manage your wealth to do their job, to manage your wealth and to protect you. Because one of the first points, and this is Warren Buffett, who is greatly discredited in my view nowadays for his role in the control structure, but like I say, you get too good, they will have knocked on his door and broken a few of his windows, and he would have had to comply. So I suspect that's why. But he said, rule number 1, don't lose money. Rule number 2, always obey. Rule number 1. So at the key moment, when they are franchised to defend you from epic loss in an long-only, cheap money, pump the assets up environment, in that liquidity crisis, which will be far greater than 2008, the door will be shut. In 2008, the government stood behind banks and pumped the liquidity in most banks and said, let them keep drawing out their money, let them keep drawing out their money. The other part of the game, when it's too big, really too big, I'm talking bigger than 2008, tactic that they can use, apart from pumping money, bearing in mind they've played that in an expansion of monetary funds and liquidity to such an extreme that that card has now been played. Furthermore, is diminishing returns. The next step is preventing the people from being made whole and being able to get their money out of banks, and for asset managers to even be able to sell stocks, securities, or any value asset managed remit underlying market that they are looking after on behalf of clients. Government will prevent it. When I say you are in a new form of communism, and we talk about the big idealistic war, capitalism, communism, this is how they operate. Thesis, antithesis, antithesis, as some people say. They are at two extremes: capitalism, price discovery, market. Then you get communism, totally state-run. What we've actually got is synthesis. This is their game. They create the polarities and they pull them forward, and synthesis is the bit that goes forward. In other words, you have Russia pursuing quite capitalistic tendencies in certain arenas, and you actually have the dark state extending to the global level of all these global institutions now acting against your interests. They know it's coming. They have reserved the right for lockdown, and you will be told, shut up and wait while we sort this out however we decide how. This is the Great Reset. This is the global institutions getting into major asset managers extending beyond banks in their too big to fail remit, and this is how they are going to play the game next time around. Shut it down, tell them to bugger off and come back later when we issue our new currency, world denomination, and give everybody a massive haircut and continue and rinse and repeat our tertiary extracting, ever expanding monetary policy experiment. I'm just curious to what extent this will come through via the blockchain. What do you do with this information? You make sure you have tangible assets that are unapproachable. Make sure that you are not overexposed to major managers of your pension money. Get them into self-invested products and get more of your money under your hands and in assets that will survive a shutdown. Liquid assets that you can contain on yourself, and also potentially blockchain assets and cryptos that are not controlled for now, but watch the clampdown. It's no nirvana in any one of them. Make sure you have a mix, cash on you and precious metal coins, and have your own home. Have all you need to sustain you for an extended period, because these guys are preparing for the big closeout mega crash. This is your cheery message for New Year 2018. You are reminded of that The Economist cover, a Rothschild's rag with 2018 and the new world currency coin exposed on it, and their eagle symbol that they have. Go Google it, released in 1988 and described as, in 30 years' time, new world currency. I'm Francis Hunt. Thank you for your support. This is going on the Reset Sniper channel. I'm going to post it once to the Market Sniper, but this kind of content will not be going any further to the Market Sniper. So please subscribe to the Reset Sniper if you wish for this kind of content. I'll be doing more in this space. Market Sniper will be strictly about methodology and the method, and I look forward to talking to you all further in our preparation for the Great Reset and the behind the scenes manipulation, subterfuge, corruption and bullying by a global control structure that wishes to insert rules and control every not just banks, every potential financial institution by force at the key moments when they should be acting in your interest. Enjoy your year, stay awake, and I look forward to interacting with you further. And there are plenty of things you can do. And remember, the Great Reset, those that act, those that are part of a community, those that are positioning, and we're looking at developing all elements of this in our community, will be better off. You will go up in relative wealth. Those that fail and do not act, those that do not look at all aspects of surviving the Great Reset to thriving in the Great Reset, are more likely to feel a bolt of lightning out of the blue, which it certainly won't be, that has been planned behind closed doors for the Great Reset that we all know has to come. Thanks very much, and speak to you all soon later on other topics.